that I can see you guys. Give me a quick second. We're going to talk about fat today and all the research that's coming about coconut oil. So are we here? We're here. Awesome. All right, I'm going to be watching for your questions. So I have some articles for you guys. But before we jump into those, if you're coming on, please give this a thumbs up. Ask a question in the chat bar. Just let me know if you can hear my audio okay. We're going to talk about coconut oil, MCT oil, and specifically something that I think a lot of people are not really talking about right now, and that's the microbiome that can be changed through saturated fatty acids, particularly coconut oil. So let me just check and make sure that we're... All right, we got a few of you on, so if you're here, say something, please give it a thumbs up. So first article up in all this coconut oil controversy that you've been hearing about. I don't know about you, but every time I turn on Facebook or I look on Instagram, people are talking about coconut oil, and so forth. And you know that article that was published in the journal Circulation, which I'll put in the comment section below. It's called Dietary Fats and Cardiovascular Disease. This was the opinion paper published in the journal of the Circulation. Sam, is this going to be out of focus?
I can focus.
All right. So first things first, you guys have heard about this. I'll move it in just a second here. But so for those of you guys just coming on, we're talking about coconut oil, and we're going to talk specifically about coconut oil and the microbiome, and not really so much cholesterol, but really about how coconut oil in the wrong context can increase absorption of bacterial inflammagens known as endotoxin. And in my opinion, that can be part of the problem if and only if you're eating coconut oil out of context too much and so forth. But the article, the American Heart Association concluded that coconut oil is not really a health food. Why? Because it changes LDL cholesterol. Now, there's some things you need to understand. I definitely do not agree with that particular statement, and I'll talk to you about why. So when we talk about just looking at traditional blood labs, looking at LDL cholesterol or HDL, hey guys coming in, awesome, so we can hear you loud and clear. All right, thanks for letting me know about that. For those of you guys just coming on, please give it a thumbs up if you like it. Type something in the comment bar, letting me know what you think about coconut oil or the controversy. But getting back to cholesterol, and this is important, when you change your diet, when you change the macronutrient composition in your diet, you can remodel the composition of the lipoprotein particles. So let me explain. Low density lipoprotein, it doesn't just carry cholesterol. Okay, it carries triglycerides and other particles, lipid particles and fragments within that low density lipoprotein. So you can actually shift your diet and shift your blood cholesterol levels into a more favorable phenotypic expression that's characteristic of reduced cardiovascular risk. And actually, it may look bad on paper if you don't do the advanced particle testing, looking at LDL particle number, types of, the composition of the particles, like remnant lipoprotein, LDL particle size, VLDL, and so forth. So that's a thing that you need to understand. So I used to work for a company called SpectraCell Labs, and they run a really, really good advanced cholesterol test. And so I learned all this stuff while working for that lab. When people would change their diet, at first their LDL cholesterol would look terrible. And I would go to the chief medical officer of the lab and say, hey, what's going on with this? And he's like, you know what? As people become more insulin sensitive, their LDL may artificially look higher because the low density lipoproteins actually are carrying less triglycerides and more LDL. And when they do I think it's called the Friedwald equation, when they're looking at just Quest and LabCorp, it will freak doctors out, but that's why you need to look at traditional, at advanced lipoprotein particle testing, like the Berkeley, Boston Heart Labs. SpectraCell has a really, really good assay, some of those. So, when the journal Circulation comes out and just offers a blanket statement that saturated fat is correlated with LDL cholesterol elevations, we need to say, okay, well, LDL cholesterol, if that's the only thing we're looking at from a standard test, it's really not that accurate. So then we have to go, okay, well, does LDL cholesterol correlate with ischemic heart disease, cerebral vascular disease, coronary artery occlusion? And so there was an interesting, review of all the meta-analysis. So I'll hold this up here so Sam can let you guys know the paper. So he's got it in focus here. So this is a really, really good paper, guys. Definitely download this, check it out. So basically, the correlation between dietary saturated fat, ischemic heart disease, coronary artery occlusion. So basically, coronary artery blockage is what can cause poor blood supply to the heart and a heart attack at some level, right? So is there a correlation between saturated fat, LDL cholesterol, and bad outcomes? And there's not. I mean, that's the thing. And not only just for heart disease, but also cerebral vascular disease like strokes and so forth. So I think it's a little bit, should I say reckless? I don't know what the proper word is, but I don't think it's very good for the Journal of Circulation, knowing that there's evidence that does not correlate poor outcomes with consumption of different types of macronutrients like saturated fat and so on, and then blaming one particular fat over the other. So the important thing we need to keep in mind, this is tip number one, before we talk about gut bacteria, that's where we're going, guys, and saturated fat, how that may increase your risk of heart disease from the absorption of endotoxin. But there's not a strong correlation between saturated fat and LDL cholesterol and poor outcomes. That's the thing. So what you need to understand if you're worried about this yourself is get an advanced lipoprotein particle assessment. And, so that's how you can know for yourself. So don't read the headlines. Take action upon yourself and take the onus to do advanced blood tests on you to see if a high fat diet and you're having a lot of coconut oil or MCTs or whatever, if that's giving your lipid profile a more atherogenic signature. An atherogenic signature meaning that we're getting a higher prevalence of small, dense LDL particles. Apolipoprotein B is elevated. So that's a small little side tip for those of you that are interested in heart health and you don't have access to these advanced labs. Just run an apolipoprotein B. It's very inexpensive. Quest and LabCorp, all the traditional labs do this. That's a lipoprotein kind of a thing on the outside surface of any remnant lipoproteins, VLDL, ILDL, and LDL. And so if that's elevated, that means your liver is making more lipoproteins. Theoretically, the more lipoproteins you have flowing around, with apolipoprotein B, they can become oxidized, and that can cause vascular damage. Okay. Anyway, I'm gonna check the comments. Cool, you guys are. You know what? Because we got the phone here and all this, maybe what I can do is I'm going to send a message. Sorry to be distracted here, guys. I'm gonna send this to you, Sam, so that we can answer some of the questions here. So let me see here. How do I do that though? Oh, we're live here. Boom. All right. So let me turn down the volume. Sorry, guys, to be all do it. So here's the live chat. So Sam, if you see any really cool questions, whatever. Sam, the man, is filming this, guys. This is the first time that we've almost had a seamless start. The start before here, for some reason, YouTube wouldn't let the camera go live. Anyway, I deviate from the topic at hand. So next up, Sam, we might want to focus in on this. This is a really, really good article, guys. I'm kind of reading this upside down, but basically the composition of the oil, that we're ingesting can affect what we absorb from our GI tract. So this was one of many, many papers that links the type of oil that we're eating and how much oil we're eating and what happens with the endotoxin. So let me just pause. If you haven't read my book, Belly Fat Effect, please go out and check it out on Kindle or Amazon, whatever. I have a lot of bonuses for you guys. This is over 4 years old now, but it's very congruent and current with what we're talking about now. So the premise of that book was that bacterial endotoxin from our GI tract, of which you, your family members, your spouse, your kids, your grandparents, we all have 5 grams of endotoxin containing particles in our body. So what is endotoxin? It's a bacterial fragment. It's on the cell surface of gram-negative bacteria like E. coli and proteobacteria and so forth. This fragment is very, very pro-inflammatory. When you absorb it from, say, having a lot of coconut oil, for example, or having French fries, or having too much cheesecake, what can happen is that bacterial fragment is being absorbed through the chylomicrons. Okay, let me pause here. You're eating a lot of high-fat food, which I recommend. I'm not anti-fat at all. I'm not anti-coconut oil. Just let me explain the mechanisms. You're eating a lot of fat. How these shorter chain fats are absorbed, and long chain fats, they're absorbed in the gut via chylomicrons. These are spherical-like structures. I wish I could have a whiteboard to demonstrate for you guys, but I'm just going to make a very cursory ball here. This is a chylomicron. This is a bunch of fats that you ingested in your diet. Okay, this is the lumen of your intestines. You got lumen of your intestine. You got chylomicron. You inadvertently can have bacterial fragments coming into this chylomicron, and that's getting into your hepatic, your liver circulation, and going systemic. Now, the challenge with that is when those chylomicrons release the fatty acid particles from coconut oil or butter or lard, whatever it is, when they release that, the endotoxin is being released. Endotoxin latches on to your innate immune system called the toll-like receptor 4, and it triggers this whole cascade of very pro-inflammatory events that lead to atherosclerosis and heart disease and autoimmunity and loss of immune tolerance and asthma and allergies and obesity. So the premise of the book Belly Fat Effect was all that, you know what, all these bad foods that we call high calorie, this is just leading to elevated blood levels of endotoxin, and endotoxin is correlated with all these diseases. So a healthy diet, a healthy ketogenic diet with vegetables, with phytonutrients, with plant-derived fats like avocado and even some coconut and nuts and seeds and eggs and so forth. That diet it's not only just a ketogenic diet, a low-carb diet, it's a low endotoxin diet, friends. So that's why it's having its profound effect. But let me pause. For those of you guys who are joining us, please subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Give this a thumbs up, and we're going to see Sam. I've seen some questions here. What do we got that's important?
All right, so we got one from someone named Dan Gessler, and he's asked, is half a can of organic coconut milk, excluding the water, too much per day?
Okay, so Dan asked a great question about coconut milk. Like, is that too much? Well, I don't think so. My wife and I eat a lot of coconut milk. I think the less refined of the coconut product, the better. So that's the thing, Dan. Anyone tuning in, guys, we have a lot of coconut oil in our cupboards and stuff. We use it in cooking and everything else, but in moderation. I mean, if we think about, did our ancestors, if we take a step back and go, okay, coconut oil, it's highly refined. You have to roast the coconuts and squeeze it and put machines. Your ancestors and humans that are unindustrialized right now, they're not having coconut oil, friends. I'm sorry. I'm not trashing on coconut oil, but that's the reality of the situation. It's a man-made product. It's highly refined. There's no phytonutrients in coconut oil and so on. So out of context, having a bunch of coconut oil or coconut milk with no cocoa, like chocolate, those polyphenols can slow down the absorption of the endotoxin. Rosemary, herbs and spices, garlic, onions, like in real cooking, you might have a problem. So I think, there is a little bit of truth to, maybe what the American Heart Association was saying is all these people in the health space think, oh, coconut oil is healthy. Put it on my skin, use it for sex, whatever, right? And eat with it and cook with it. Like, too much of anything can be bad. And so again, I'm not trashing on it, but I'm saying, getting back to the study that I was showing to you guys, and if you're just coming on, just hit the rewind button a little bit. Coconut oil can increase absorption of bacterial fragments known as lipopolysaccharide or endotoxin from your GI tract. And that's correlated with a lot of diseases, diabetes, insulin resistance, inflammation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so if you've been following kind of the work that we've been doing on the podcast, some of the things that I've been sharing for a while, that was the biggest reason why I was kind of anti-keto for a while, because I saw so many people doing the ketogenic diet wrong. Bacon, lard, pork rinds, a lot of butter and everything, coconut oil and everything. It's like, okay, while that may fit a macronutrient, 80 to 90% of fat, for a ketogenic diet, that's going to wreck your microbiome. That's going to cause you to absorb bacterial inflammagens. So if you're trying to calm down inflammation because you have autoimmunity, you're overweight, and yet you're absorbing all this bacterial inflammagens because of the poor quality fats that you're eating, you're going to have a problem whether you're keto or not. So that's kind of the message here is if you're gonna do a lot of coconut oil, friends, and you're not gonna change what you're doing, that's fine. But just add rosemary, add garlic, add ginger, add onions, have it in context. Okay, so that's an important point. And so another follow-up article. So I think this article that I'm gonna put in the links, guys, this was published in 2013. A follow-up article, I emailed and corresponded with this researcher, Dr. Light at University of Iowa. And so his group, what they wanted to do is try and figure out. Thanks, Sam, for doing that. They wanted to figure out which type, was it short chain fats, was it saturated fat, the composition of the fatty acids. So they had it was a randomized, it was actually a crossover controlled trial. I mean, both these studies that I'm going to put in the description below this, guys, and talking to you about are really, really well controlled. And so what they wanted to do in this one particular study that I'm mentioning to you was just published in November of 2016. They found that coconut oil, again, not trashing on it, here's just what the science is showing, increases postprandial triglyceride levels. And so, okay, you're saying, well, so what's the big deal? Well, more so than olive oil, more so than butter, and so forth. And I think they looked at rapeseed oil as well, so canola oil. And so what they found is that it increased postprandial levels of triglycerides, even though it was the same macronutrients. It was a chain length of the saturated fat that has this differential impact on post-meal processing, right? Chain length meaning like, how long are the saturated fatty acid or polyunsaturated fatty acid chains in the oil and whatnot. But the point is coconut oil, out of all the oils, I'm just the messenger, don't be mad at me. Coconut oil led to the greatest increase in bacterial endotoxin. Remember, for those of you just coming on, bacterial endotoxin is very, very pro-inflammatory, linked with obesity, diabetes, autoimmunity, depression, neurologic disorders, and everything you can think of. You don't want endotoxin in your body. So that's the thing. And after reading this, did I say, I'm not having coconut oil? No. I'm like, wow, okay, if I'm going to have a lot of coconut oil, make sure to offset that with, like I mentioned earlier, chocolate, rosemary, green tea, curcumin, like mix in the polyphenols. And so that's the take home here. Now, if you just have high coconut oil, irrespective of your blood lipids, and you're absorbing this bacterial endotoxin, that's going to increase your risk of heart disease. So with that small little last statement that I mentioned, I guess I do think there is a small part of truth into what the American Heart Association published in the journal Circulation, saying that, coconut oil is not a health food. If you eat it out of context, it's not a health food. Why? Because this article and many others have shown that it can increase levels of bacterial endotoxin, which, as I mentioned, I talk about in the book Belly Fat Effect, and there's a ton of research out there, friends. It's linked with all these ailments and diseases. So, while I'm looking for the next article, which is just right here, I want to have Sam. All right, I know we got more questions, Sam. What do we got?
Oh, wow, you have a ton of questions. Going back, someone named Mehet.
Who's this Deanna Mutzel lady on there? It's my
Trolling.
wife.
So he asked, how does your ancestors' diet look like? I'm assuming like your parents and grandparents.
Yeah.
And how much coconut oil is the percentage of your daily total fat intake?
Yeah, so that's a really, really good question. I think about that. Well, so I don't have, every day I try and eat something different and new, so it's not like every day I have 20 grams of fat from coconut oil, 37 grams of fat from butter. It's like dietary diversity and dietary flexibility is key, guys. If you're low carb, high carb, whatever you're doing, change up your diet. Like the broader array of phytonutrients, flavonoids, different types of vegetables, herbs, spices, and good fats, it's going to be good for your microbiome. It's good for your overall health. So I don't quantify anything. And I eat commensurate with my activity level. The more I exercise, the more I eat. The less I exercise, the less I eat. And so I think that's just a good philosophy to live by. You may disagree with me and say, no, I want to do this every single day. Cool with that, whatever. But I want to, because if you overeat on inactive days, you get fat. At least I do. So I don't want to get fat. I want to stay lean. And so that's just my approach. Also, going back to what do I personally eat? Forget about all that. I eat what's in season. So we grow a lot of our own vegetables. I don't care if you're keto or high carb or vegan or paleo. It's hard to argue with the fact that you should eat what's seasonally available. So going back to the first part of that question is what do your ancestors eat? So my particular ancestors, grandfather, great-grandfather, great-great-great-grandfather actually were farmers. And so they would grow food in parts of the Bay Area, California and Arizona and Ireland and things like that. So I don't know exactly what they ate back then, but I presume they ate what was seasonally available, just like I'm trying to teach you to eat, because I really don't think you can go wrong with that. Whether you're keto, whether you're whatever, eat what's in season. And it turns out that I think there's something cool about being a cyclical carbohydrate eater, in the sense that during this time of the year, right now, when you're watching this during the start of the summer, you can get away with having more carbs while still staying in ketosis. The days are longer, you're probably more active, and so on. And those foods are available, so why not eat them? So going back to our ancestors too, I don't think our ancestors, well, I know that, they didn't eat coconut oil. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't eat it. They would eat coconut products. And that brings back an interesting point. If you're from North Dakota or living in Chicago or whatever, in the middle of February, I don't think your ancestors living there had coconut oil. I'm sorry. I know there's a lot of conveniences from industrialization and global travel and stuff like that. So I'm not saying we shouldn't take advantage of those opportunities that we're exposed to at this point in time. However, if we try to eat and live with our environment and honor our body's circadian rhythms and honor the seasonality and the shifts in our microbiome and our gut ecology and all these different things, and really try and live in harmony with nature, which I think is best for our bodies, should we be having a lot of refined products that aren't available to us in the season and the place that we live? I don't know. I think it's an interesting question and one that I want to explore more. That being said, when you go to Hawaii or Costa Rica, parts of Mexico where you get coconuts, people are eating the coconut meat, scooping things out. It's the whole product. And that's the thing where, we take an isolated, refined component like the refined white oil that has no protein, nothing, and we overconsume it and we think it's healthy because it's sold in health food stores. I don't know. I'm not saying it's unhealthy. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. It's good to cook with because it doesn't oxidize at high temperatures. But, it shouldn't be a staple. I think we should make staples out of, again, things that are available in a close proximity to where we live, like avocados. We live in Seattle, Washington. Unfortunately, we can't grow them. But just a few hundred miles south of here, avocados are growing like crazy. So we can import them reasonably and so on. So, any other questions, Sam, before we talk about the MCT?
One quick one. Rob has asked this twice, so I want to make sure we get to it.
For sure.
Srinivas, he says, Mike, what about what's your thoughts on bulletproof brain octane oil?
Yeah, Rob, awesome question. I have a little bit in the cupboard right there. As you know, Rob, or if you're new to the channel, welcome. We've had Dave Asprey on the podcast too, so check that out. But so I think it's good. Have I noticed any total changes in my life from it? No. I think the body is really unique in getting into ketosis. So I think it's really important, to not rely upon all these supplements and all these things to get into ketosis, and to just exercise, balance your body's circadian rhythms, eat mindfully, eat real food. You can burn fat for fuel and then make ketones, and then you can naturally have high levels of ketones. It turns out that MCT oil, like brain octane, is actually very rapidly absorbed. It's absorbed as quickly as glucose. So normally fats take a lot, they're stored in the enterocytes, they need the chylomicrons in terms of absorption, bile, pancreatic lipase. Like absorbing fats is somewhat complex, unlike amino acids and glucose. MCT oil, it's absorbed like glucose. It gets right in there, it does what it needs to do. And it kind of overrides that acetyl-CoA pool. If we think about like kind of from top to bottom, the acetyl-CoA goes down into the mitochondria and the Krebs cycle, and then that's how we get cellular energy. So those fatty acids from like brain octane oil or MCT oil, actually they don't even need carnitine transport proteins to get inside the mitochondria. Like they can just go right across because they're so short. So I think that's really, really cool. For people that, in particular, there's a lot of genetic single nucleotide polymorphisms or genetic aberrations where people have carnitine transport protein defects and whatnot. And so they're not able to absorb or to properly garner the benefits of a ketogenic diet. And so I think MCT oil or something like brain octane is key in that situation. Do you need it all the time? Probably not. Do you need it, for example, maybe you're a bodybuilder or you're working out and you want to stay lean and stay in ketosis, but you want to get the benefits of your workout program, maximize that so you have carbohydrates while you train, and then you can have MCT oil after to get into ketosis like that. So that's when I use the MCT oil. I know a lot of people use it when they're fasting, but it doesn't make sense. If you're fasting, you have low blood glucose, low blood insulin. Those are the two conditions that you need to make ketones in your liver. You don't need the extra help through the MCTs. Your body's going to start to make them anyway, right, when you're fasting. So when you're fasting, forget about the exogenous ketones. Forget about MCT oil. Your body's doing it naturally, guys. Save yourself the money. Buy healthy food. Go on a vacation. Invest in books that will make you smarter, or do things like that. You need exogenous ketones, you need MCT oil if you're trying to kind of like push your body to levels that it hasn't been before. For example, you're a CrossFitter and you want to stay keto during CrossFit, and so maybe you're going to have more carbohydrates than a normal ketogenic person would during that exercise. You want to get into hardcore ketosis right afterwards, so you take ketones after, or you take MCT oil after. Or you have head trauma. You're an athlete or you work in an occupation where head trauma is high risk and you want to have really high levels of ketones, supplement with MCT oil. I think that's the situation. But you don't need to have it every single day in coffee and this. Like if you're healthy, metabolically flexible, your liver's making ketones. So Rob, great question though. Hopefully, sorry, that was like a super long answer. But before we get to more questions, Sam, let's show everyone this paper, because this paper actually, incidentally, it ties in closer.
Yeah, there we go.
So guys, this paper ties into exactly what Rob was asking about MCT oil. And I don't think it was the best controlled study But anyway, let me read you the title: Medium chain triglyceride oil, an unintended placebo with unexpected adverse effects. So the adverse effects. So this actually, by the way, if you want to learn about MCT oil, this paper rocks. I mean, everything that I just told you about the carnitine transport proteins, about the fact that MCT oils are absorbed really, really well and all that good stuff, I learned from this paper. So it's kind of fun doing these live videos because I'm learning while we're all learning together. So thanks for the motivation and like your interest. And please, your thumbs up if you like this video. Subscribe to the channel. Give it a thumbs up and type something in the comment bar below because I always check the comments after. But anyway, I'm getting back. So what were the unintended adverse effects of MCT oil? Well, here's what it was. First, let me explain to you your red blood cells contain, well, all cells in the body, contain different levels of fatty acids and so forth. Healthy omega-3 fats, EPA, DHA, and DPA, so eicosapentaenoic acid, docosahexaenoic acid, and docosapentaenoic acid. These are the omega-3 fats that are considered favorable. Higher levels of these omega-3 fats in our tissues are correlated inversely with all these diseases: heart disease, cancer, autoimmunity, blah, blah, blah. So we want high levels of these omega-3 fats to be in our tissues and so forth. That's why a lot of doctors recommend fish oil, stuff like that. Well, it turns out, this was the first time I heard about it, this paper showed that when you consume MCT oil, you reduce the EPA DHA within your red blood cells. So does that mean you shouldn't take MCT oil? No. That's just saying that it may not be as benign. When we're artificially changing our macronutrients, there can be unintended, potentially adverse effects, which is the exact title of this paper. So, Rob, you're taking MCT oil, brain octane all the time. You might want to supplement with omega-3 fats. And so I just want a little pause, commercial timeout for our sponsor, Zymogen. One of the most, I think, the highest quality fish oil on the planet is Zymogen's monoglyceride-based fish oil. It's a monoglyceride, so you don't need pancreatic lipase and bile and all this. It's absorbed really, really well, 3 times better than any other fish oil, and it's 5-star IFOS certified. I'll put a link so that you can learn a little bit more about this. It's sold through pharmacies and healthcare practitioners. This is the fish oil that I take because it really changes and shifts your red blood cell omega-3 index, meaning it increases the incorporation of these healthy anti-inflammatory, brain protective DPA, DHA, and EPA. So, Rob, or anyone listening, you're doing brain octane, you're doing bulletproof, that's awesome, that's cool, but you want to supplement with the omega-3s because according to this paper, and it's just one study so far, when was this published? July of 26, so about a year ago. So I didn't look to see any references on this in terms of like who cited this paper and continued this on. This is its only paper of its kind to my knowledge. It could be more, guys. But I think that's pretty interesting that saturated fatty acid can displace omega-3 fats in tissues potentially. So we still got quite a few people on. Let's see here.
Yeah, comments are blowing up.
Oh my gosh, we have so many. Brian says benign. Is that Brian Williams from the Keto Evangelist podcast? Anyway, guys, I have to go through all these comments. I don't want to be rude and like stare at my phone and like be talking to you, so I'm going to go through these comments. I really, really appreciate you tuning in. As I've said like 3 times, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to the channel. We have a lot of new Sam and I were like filming all this afternoon. We were just in the UK working on the documentary, the keto movie, which you guys are going to totally dig and enjoy because we're talking about everything like we talked about today, but incorporating all the lifestyle factors. So it's so much more than just macronutrients, more than keto. There's sleep and vitamin D, the microbiome, and etc. So we're going to really kind of break it down for you guys. I think you'll really enjoy it. So support our show, sponsor Zymogen. I'll put the link in this description. And like I said, really appreciate you tuning in. If you have any comments or whatever, if you're watching the replay, you actually can't type in live stuff. You just type in a regular comment like a YouTube video. I'll reply to that. And I appreciate you guys tuning in. Hope you get out there, get some sunlight. Let me give you a little tip. So we just caught up with a really good doctor, really awesome doctor that talked all about sleep and sleep apnea and vitamin D. So this connection between vitamin D deficiency and sleep disorders is key. So we talked about omega-3s. Another supplement that you may want to consider, whether you're keto, vegan, low carb, high carb, is vitamin D, but also get natural sunlight. So keep your blood levels above 80 nanograms per DL. So guys, I'm going to tune out. Really appreciate you tuning in. And I'm going to look through all these comments and I'll try to write back to you. I don't know how all that stuff works, but we'll catch up with you soon. Thanks for showing up.